All right, guys, baseball offseason is here. I want to give you 3 things you should be focusing on during this year's offseason. The offseason is a super important time for every athlete to be focusing on their craft because it's the time to make wholesale changes to your biomechanics and your neurology. And that's going to help you improve not only your performance, but also keep you healthy for next year's season. So this is really where you can take that next step. I'm going to give you 3 things to focus on this offseason. The first thing I want you to work on is scapular stability. This is super important, especially for pitchers or really any overhand throwing athlete, just to make sure you're stabilizing the scapula well, because if you're not, you're going to be lacking in external rotation. So what I want you to do is when you externally rotate, even you can take a video of yourself throwing, I want you to see if your traps are engaged. So if you can see when I come up into this externally rotated position, I want my upper trap completely disengaged, okay? If I'm coming here like this and my trap is engaged while I'm throwing, I'm going to be losing external rotation. So I want you to see that from the side view. So if my trap is disengaged, I can get a lot further than if I engage my trap and come up here. So now all that force that you're lacking in your shoulder because that trap is engaged is going to be coming from or transporting to the elbow, okay? We know that's dangerous for pitchers. We don't want that to happen. So here are 2 exercises you can do just to help with trap engagement. First exercise, you're going to get down. Use your baseball bat. I have a dowel here. You're going to get down on your stomach. Okay. Hold the bat at each end. Nice neutral neck. And you're just going to pull so you're engaging your scapula. This is going to be really good at just making sure that scapular thoracic rhythm is there. We're working with that extra range of motion. And we're getting that external rotation that we need with the proper scapular mechanics. Exercise number 2 for scapular stability. You're going to use, I use the yoga block. I want you to use like your baseball glove you could use, a cleat, whatever it may be, okay? And we're just going to focus that external rotation motion. You're going to grab a baseball, face down, nice steady posture. Make sure your elbow's at 90 degrees. It's very important. And you'll probably feel your upper trap engage in this position. You're going to slightly push your elbow down into this block here, just to get enough pressure that nobody can withdraw this block here from you. So you're just slightly holding the table. You're not jamming it down, and you're coming into external rotation like that while maintaining that downward pressure of the elbow. Repeat three sets at 10 to 12. It's a great warm-up you can do before any sort of overhand throwing activity. The second thing I want you to focus on this baseball offseason is hip internal rotation, okay? So there's a couple things to mention here. Here's a quick screen I want you to do at home first. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take a baseball bat. I don't have one here, so we'll use a dowel. You're going to take one of your own foot length apart from the other foot, just like so. Set your bat down right at that toe. Bring your foot right to the outside of that bat, okay? So now you got 1 foot length between your 2 feet. Okay, so that's a nice healthy amount of internal rotation for you. You'll set the bat down directly in the center of your 2 feet. Hands on your hips. Lift the toe and try to get that toe to that dowel. Okay, you should be able to get your toe to that dowel. So if you see, I'll have no problem doing it with my left side. With my right side, I am lacking. Okay, so that tells me that I'm lacking internal rotation of my right hip. Let me show you why that's important. If you're a hitter, you need to be able to get back into that hip, into internal rotation on that back hip when you're loading on your swing. So if you cannot get there because of a lack of range of motion, you're going to have trouble getting back into your glute, which we will talk about here in a minute. That's super important for a hitter in that regard. With a pitcher, the same exact thing. So on your back foot, you need to come back into that glute. You're going to have trouble. And if it's on your front foot, on your follow through, you're going to have trouble in internal rotation there. So there's workarounds that we can do if there's something like a femoral acetabular impingement, or if it's something that's just soft tissue, just a normal range of motion. There's plenty of exercises that we can do. I'll show you 2 of them here. First exercise for hip internal rotation is going to be a variation of the 90-90. I'm sure you've seen this position before. Why this position is good is because you're working external rotation on this front leg and internal rotation on this back leg. Okay, so this is very good. And what you'll do in order to get a good mobility stretch is you'll actually reach back across your body. So you can walk your hands upper body up. I'm very tight in this right side, as we just saw on the screen, and I'm just leaning in here, okay? What we don't want to feel in this position is we don't want to feel any deep pinching or sharp pain on the interior of that hip. If you feel that, you stop immediately. What we do want to feel is like a tugging, a good stretching sensation. And then if you get pretty good at that, you can even work in more of a dynamic, more of a flow type 90-90. And you can see how I'm a little bit better on this side. I'm actually cheating a little bit. That's why. Reach back. All right, the last thing I really want you to focus on is a little bit more complex. It's the relationship between the hip and the shoulder. So we talked about shoulder mechanics for the first thing we want to work on. The second thing we want to work on is the hip, right? Hip mobility. The third thing we're going to work on is making sure those two things are tied together. Okay, it's very important for the sport of baseball, any sort of swing sport or throwing sport. That hip and the shoulder are going to play a crucial role in working together to maintain not only optimal performance, but to help prevent injury as well. So here's one thing. I'm just going to show you one exercise you can do at home to help tie those two things together. All right, so this is going to be our exercise we're going to use to help tie the hip and the shoulder together. It's a pretty complex starting position, so I want you to pay attention. This is going to look a little bit like a 90-90 to get started, and then you're going to reach forward across your body and just land on your elbows here, okay? So the the shoulder and the hip we're working is the down-sided hip. So right now, this is right side is down, so that's the hip we're working along with that same side shoulder. Okay, so that's what we're tying together. So if you're a right-handed thrower, bring this elbow out towards me a little bit. Good. So if you're a right side thrower, we want to be working that right side. Okay. So the first thing we're going to work on is just core activation, good core stability. So we're going to breathe out into our belly, and then it's very simply, you're just going to push your upper body up towards the ceiling. So I'm going to use my hand here because I have it. If you're by yourself, you just want to make sure you're not flying into neck extension. Show them what neck extension would look like for me. So you don't want to do that. Good. You want to maintain that nice neutral head position and just driving your upper body, your rib cage through the table. Pretend there's a string pulling you to the ceiling. Okay. So that's step one there. Go ahead and relax for me. Step two, once you feel that pressure, you're going to feel that big time in your shoulder, right, Alyssa? Yeah. So we're going to add the hip in here. So we're going to do that same exact upper body move. Make sure we got that down. Good. Nice push through. Pull it to the ceiling. And we're actually going to go ahead and drive through that front knee and lift the hip up off the ground. Good. So we're just maintaining that pressure always in the belly. So you're going to feel that in both the hip and the shoulder. And what else through this area, through this front side area, is the oblique. Okay, so a very common baseball injury is because the oblique injury is because the hips and the shoulders aren't tied together like they should be. It's a very good stretch. Alyssa's probably suffering over here. Keep pushing through those elbows. Good. So you're going to feel that in that bottom hip and that right shoulder. It's a great, go ahead and relax. It's a great take-home warm-up type exercise for you to do. It's really neurology. We're really trying to tie that neurology together for those two major joints. Okay, so make sure you practice these three things this off season. I think it's going to improve the quality of your off season and hopefully both your health and performance next year.